Hello, this is Dylan Knight and Jim Syme from Alpha 7 Energy here in Dallas, Texas. Just wanted to make a quick video for all of you watching at home on your computers or your phones. Jim has obviously joined ASE over the last 6 months since we've drilled our first 2 wells out in Borden County, West Texas. And just wanted to get Jim, with all of his experience and expertise, to share a little bit of his knowledge regarding our project and the wells that we've drilled. And just wanted for him to explain how we're going to improve our next well, which is Borden County Phase 2, that we're going to be drilling here over the next few months. So Jim, thanks for your time today, mate.
Oh, you bet.
Could you just give the people at home a brief understanding of obviously your experience in the industry and how you became involved in this project, and then obviously a part of ASE?
Sure. As far as the oil and gas business, third generation. My father was a drilling contractor as well as an operating company. So I started going out to properties, fifth grade, 10 years old, pretty regularly. Not what I really wanted to do over the weekend, but it had its uses. After school, I went to work with my father. Started drilling wells in the Appalachian Basin. Drilled several wells before my father and I parted ways, and I went into business with a friend of mine, and we actually went into the gas processing business. So had experience with the drilling and completing, then the gas processing or midstream business end of it. When the time the first crash in oil and gas, we owned probably 6 or 7 wells, and then we also had 3 processing plants and then a master processing plant for liquid natural gas, as well as processing and moving regular natural gas. Went into private consulting after that, since there was no oil business really to be had, with power generation and heavy mining. Wrote insurance papers as far as maintenance and production insurance. Went back into the oil and gas business with the same gentleman that I started with back in '86. They'd come into a shale formation called the Barnett Shale, which was the precursor for all of this type of drilling in these shale formations, both here in the United States and worldwide. We drilled a number of wells. I handled field operations as far as the drilling, completing, and the flowback. Then I went back and completed my degree in petroleum land management at the University of Oklahoma, and began to handle lease transactions. We would buy leases, drill a couple of wells, and then roll them back out to some of the larger players in the business. Did that for a number of years before I went into equipment, building drilling rigs, both here in the United States and also abroad. And I met Alpha 7 through a mutual friend. Helped negotiate the lease on the Griffin. Then ended up actually drilling the well before we handed it off to the completing people. And that's basically, we had a dialogue. Good guys, solid guys, and they asked me to come on board, and I agreed. I like dealing with people I don't have to watch all the time. And in the oil and gas business, you have some of those type of people. I guess my main goal here is to help with the operations in the field, make sure they're done efficiently and they're done correctly. In looking at this particular lease, a couple of things that I like. We were only in a certain area, and we'll go to the board here in a second, and I guess you'd call it best shell, for I would say maybe 40-50% of the time, due to the drilling prognosis that was given to me, and also the curve. I believe that not only can we get longer laterals, in other words, plus 2 miles, but we can stay into the primary shell type rock a good portion of that time. We probably only were in the primary shell formation about 50%. And looking at the production, with the Red Milla versus the Griffin, which was a little higher up in the formation, we're looking at probably around 1,000 barrels per day. We go to stay in the formation, limit the amount of curvatures in our drilling. and maximize in the best rock. We probably look at 1,200-1,300 barrels a day, maybe better, maybe a little less.
That's a good well.
That would be it'd be a stellar well.
Absolutely.
So not many folks get those. With the last drill, we did fairly well, but we weren't in the primary rock all the time.
It's beautiful. So obviously, I've been one of the founders of ASE. I think one of the missing ingredients, I don't think I know actually, one of the missing ingredients was this gentleman to my left, Jim, who's, we're very grateful that he's joined us. Obviously you've just heard his experience, his knowledge, and the fact that he's an extremely ethical businessman, which, as I said, that's what we've kind of lacked here at Alpha 7 Energy. Prior to Jim's arrival, so we're obviously Australians. We're not first generation oil and gas people. So we're a little bit green, so to speak. So to have someone of Jim's ilk join the team is fantastic for us. But just another question I thought I'd ask you there, Jim. Obviously you reside quite often out in West Texas.
Sure.
You know the landowners of the lease that we're on, and a lot of the landowners that have ranches. The neighbours' ranches, basically. Jim has a very strong relationship with them. How do you think that, with you having these relationships with the landowners out there, benefits Alpha 7 Energy with what we're trying to achieve by acquiring as much acreage as possible? Sure. and developing out and building a portfolio which will allow investors who are watching to also build a portfolio with us?
Well, I think it's like with anything in life. People have a tendency, at least good people, of watching what you do. I've always said I hear what people say, but I watch what they do. And in our conduct as a company, and I guess myself individually, in doing what I say I'm going to do, even if it costs myself money or time that I didn't really have. But I think it's a question of integrity. These ranchers are 3 and 4 generation ranchers. They've lived off the land. Although they're fairly well off financially, they're still very humble people, and they're pretty basic people. I think that my development as far as relationship comes from just shooting straight with them, and try not to hold any punches. Being honest with them about what my thoughts are or what our thoughts are, and continuing to develop a relationship by meeting with them on, especially with our Griffin folks, on a weekly basis. I have lunch with them once a week on some properties, two properties that we're looking at acquiring. Normally see those guys once or twice a week, and just talk with them, go over what's going on in the industry, and seeing if I can be of service. I think it's commitment, and I think that those guys see our commitment to the area, and therefore want to do business with us, because a lot of companies, they just don't, in my opinion, do business straightforward. And these guys are, this is old handshake country, where they keep their word off of a handshake. A lot of folks aren't like that anymore. These guys are. And if you take care of your business, and they do watch you, then I think they kind of adopt you into the family, so to speak.
Absolutely, that's perfect. And obviously, ASE moving forward, we are looking at acquiring as much acreage out in the Permian Basin as we possibly can over the next 5+ years, and developing out that acreage with our original partners that have joined us on the Red Miller and Griffin Borden County Phase 1, and also this next project, which is Phase 2, that we will be starting very soon. So not just the Permian, there's other areas in the US that we will look to acquire acreage in, but obviously we're out in the Permian at the moment. It's the most prolific oil producing basin in the United States. So moving forward, to have relationships which Jim has explained, it's very beneficial for all of us. Jim, just another question here. You're obviously very hands-on with the operation to drill and frack both the Griffin and the Red Miller.
Sure.
Can you give the investors that are watching a little bit of a very brief summary of how that project went and why it was so successful?
Well, I think that one of the reasons it was successful is because we had top-notch people in as far as advising us on certain phases of the drilling. Drilling operations are fairly large, and they can be very complex. Steering a drill bit, that's 6,000 to 7,000 feet vertical, and you're looking at maybe 12,000 feet lateral or horizontally, it takes a very specialized crew, and you have to know, what you're doing. You have to have the people that you have employed know what they're doing, and it's a team effort. No one person, does everything. It's a group effort between our directional drillers, our drilling consultants, project managers, and mud engineers, just different areas, and mud logging, different areas of specialization, in keeping that bit where you want it to go for 10 to 12,000 feet. I believe it's organization to a big degree, and it's cooperation, having everybody in on the deal as a team. Basically the same thing with fracking. You have to know what you're doing and keeping people organized, but you also have to employ people that are very specialized in that line of work. As far as production facilities, there's a lot of calculations that go into building your pads and contract negotiations and things like that, as far as selling your oil, selling your gas. And I guess as an owner, operator for a period of time before my partner passed away, that's basically where I got the experience as far as managing projects, is because that was my end of the deal. He would handle a lot of the funding, and I would go out and make sure that the wells were drilled and they were drilled properly and efficiently. So I guess that's where hopefully that explains.
Absolutely, it does. Thank you, Jim. And another question here, which I'm sure all of our people watching will be very interested in. Looking at the current production reports of the Radmiller and the Griffin wells, it's very clear to see that the Radmiller well, which was our second well that we drilled, it had a 10,200 foot horizontal leg, if memory serves me correctly, slightly longer than the Griffin. That was the second well we drilled. It's producing around 25% more oil than the first well. Could you give people a little bit of an explanation, Jim, as to
Sure.
why you think that's the case?
Well, I'm pretty sure I know the reason why. They were up in a less prolific area of the Wolfcamp. The original drilling plan that was handed to us when we walked on location was altered on this well. What we ended up doing is bringing our once we entered the formation, we brought our descent down into the prime rock, which is the primarily shell composition Wolfcamp. We came into that formation, tried to hold our position once we got into the good rock, and maintain that through the lateral. Now, I can tell you this: on the next well that we drill, we're going to come in lower. We're going to stay in the rock. Try to stay in 100% of the time. Normally, never can 100%, but we'll settle for 90 because we were only in the primary rock about 40% of the time on this last well. So we have a better plan for the next. The reason the Radmiller was better is because the rock that was cut through or penetrated was a much better composition as far as the oil in place is concerned, and we kept it in formation. There was some concern with the first well with the Griffin that we probably possibly encountered water. At the Wolfcamp B, we addressed those concerns, and we did research on 3 wells to the south of this drilling position, all along the lateral to our east and to our north and west. No water present, so we basically got to the lower area, got to the good shell, and kept it in as long as we could, taking into consideration our entry point was not optimal.
Beautiful, fantastic. And I guess the last question that I'm going to ask will probably require us maybe having a quick look up here at some of the well logs that we have of the Radmiller well. So just the last question, Jim, before we wrap it up. We've opened up access for investors to secure their investment into the third well, which is on the same lease. It's approximately about 1,000 feet away.
Yes, it's 1,000 feet off of the last well.
Okay.
And it's positioned in such a way that we have very little hooking and cooking, so to speak, with our drill bit. It's pretty much coming straight down, then going into our horizontal off our 90, and it gives us some extra torque towards the end. So we should be able to actually get a longer lateral with control, and we also should be in a position where when we come into the rock, it's good rock and we hold pat.
Beautiful.
So we try to get 100%, like I said. 90 is probably where we're going to be.
90 sounds good. If we're doing great numbers with the Red Miller, we're only in there about 50% of the time. I'm sure you guys can calculate in your heads, even the improved production numbers from being in the prime rock, up to 90% of the time. Further to that, I believe we're going to try to get to 12 to 12,500 feet laterally, as opposed to just 10,000, which again gives you an extra 25% additional of a well bore. So that's something we're very excited about. But just before we go, Jim, if you just wanted to give the people a quick rundown of what we're looking at here.
This is the front cover sheet on the mud log of the 46-2A, which is of course the Red Miller well. And you'll notice that lithography is basically the composition of the rock that we're going through, and that's something to take note of. Take note of the composition, which is going to be different. Yeah, right there. And what we're looking for is shale. The shale rock is basically where the oil and or gas is formed. Higher the shale concentration, normally the higher your output is going to be from a volume of rock. As we're going back over here, you'll see these little numbers TG, and that's meaning total gas. The other numbers are C1, C2, C3, and those are and they go on down, but they're associated gas. And this is what we're getting in the background. It's kind of indicating what kind of concentration of oil we have in place and gas. Now I can tell you that when you're drilling these things, you've got an oil-based mud. We're probably going to go with a polymer and brine water next time. Get as good a cut, but we get real accurate information when we don't have that basic petroleum type product that we're drilling with and using as a drilling mud to lubricate the hull. If we go back, this is a rundown of the log as we're going down the hull. Right here, you're going to get the total depth, which is the total depth the drill bit has moved. And
we're approaching the Wolfcamp. It's around 6,500 feet, isn't it, Jim?
Right. And then we've got on this side, we're going to have the depth, which is going to be the total vertical depth. So as you come here, this is a total depth. We're into our curve, which is the drill bit coming this way. And right here, as you can see, it's only vertical depth. In other words, how vertically it's traveled, how deep, 5946. As you're looking at the gas, we're getting some associated gas early on, and that's going to be coming out of the Sprayberry. This is actually something that we just proved up. There's a completely new zone that has not been drilled in this area. It's not new to the area as a whole, but it is to this particular area that I think possibly we have another completely different horizon that we can take advantage of. As we're going on down the hole, here's our top of the Wolfcamp, and this is going to be our total vertical depth. In other words, how far deep it is. This is going to be our total depth, and we're hitting right at the top of the Wolfcamp.
Just above 6,700 feet.
Yeah. We've got some pretty good shell concentrations here.
And just quickly to elaborate on that, Jim, the Wolfcamp, just for people who don't know what that is, obviously would have explained it to you in the explanation and the information memorandum you received, but would it be fair to say that the Wolfcamp A, Jim, is the most prolific pay zone in the Permian?
So,
in some areas?
Well, in some areas, in this area particularly. Of course, to our west, the Sprayberry, which is uphole,
yep,
which we also have. And I had them start running the mud logs a little bit early because I wanted to take a look at that Sprayberry, and we do have some pretty good concentration of gas coming through. Here's our associated gas as we showed up here that's coming in behind the drill. Right as we come into the Wolfcamp, you got increased shell composition here. You've got increased background gas.
And is that limestone there? This is limestone, is it?
Yes, that is what that is. It's limestone. And then we're going to come on down. When you come in, you start a basic slow descent. Hitting on the top of this Wolfcamp, there is some associated water at the top of the Dean Formation. So even though we've got some really good rock right at the top of the Wolfcamp, our best rock is going to be a little bit lower in the area where the Wolfcamp A and Wolfcamp B meet. As a matter of fact, we're running, this is the first well in the area that's run on top of a lime formation in the Wolfcamp B at the top of it that's actually saturated with oil. So I think that's another reason is we got into a really decent lime formation in the top of the Wolfcamp B when we fracked into it.
Fantastic.
But as we're going down, you see right here your gas, your reserve gas, or your background gas, coming in right at 7,300 TD, total depth, and then 6292. We're getting some high gas kicks, which you'll see off and on here, and then it adjusts back as we're coming into this area with a higher concentration of shell. It's coming back up, coming back up. You'll notice the background gas it increases normally with the increase of the shell rock that we're looking at. Okay, see the little jump right here?
Yep.
And right here there's another jump as the shell increases over the limestone.
And this, to explain to people, this is part of the horizontal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be the total depth. That includes your vertical depth, and that's all part of the horizontal.
Yes.
As these numbers, we came and set our our entry point at 6250. That's where we ran our intermediate. These numbers here and here are going to be deep. These are longer numbers because we're actually in the leg. These are going to be smaller numbers because
we're the depth.
Yeah, and we're only going down. Right. So as we go down. These are the numbers we're getting, but that's the total amount of hole we've made.
That's the total amount of hole we've made from the top of the earth as we go down, and we've gone to the horizontal well bore. Now, it's 65-ish, 100 feet deep with a 10,000 foot horizontal leg, so this number gets to about 16,000 feet.
Sure. Right on top of 17. As you notice, as we hit into the higher shell concentrations, your background gas is going to kick. There is a slight delay from the time we hit the shell formation to the reading in the gas. A little bit of a delay, but you can see that in the background gas charts. We're at 63 and coming down, staying at 62 for a little while. We're actually trying to get a little bit deeper. And see, we're hitting some low concentrations of gas in through here, and then you see the background gas is coming up, and you see the shell concentrations are coming up.
And Jim, would it be fair to say that, I mean, it's obviously when you have a well with this type of information, which was drilled literally, this year, and it's producing very good amounts of oil as we speak, that we can use this information obviously to be a lot more accurate and even improve on the next one.
Yeah, sure.
It's great information.
Our gamma readings, which are on the other side, right in through here, this far corner. That's also a matchup on what area of rock we're in. When we get down, we have less turning or twisting as far as the directional drilling is concerned. We have more torque at the end so that we can control the bit better on the long lateral. I do think we can get a little over 2 miles. I think 12,000 is very reasonable.
Absolutely.
We got 10 and we had a lot of turns. So coming back in, we're hitting prime rock again right through here. Your gases are coming up, and this is our shell at 6385, which is about 13.1 total depth. Here we've got almost all shell at 6387, 6385. Our gas levels, background gas, has come up. We've actually changed our scales because of the increase in gas. And here you can see it correlating again. And what we're looking at, although there's some variance, the total amount of shell that we're encountering through these lower levels is about 1520, 1530, but 6423 as far as our depth is concerned, 6427, 6431. These are all 63, 6441, 6445, 48.
Very similar, isn't it?
It's, yeah, and you've got good solid shell through these zones.
So these are the zones we want to be in.
Yeah.
In the next one.
Yeah, this is our map. We map and lock into exactly where we're at here as far as the age of the rock is concerned. Here we've got the composition of the shell, and we're looking at our background gas. It basically tells us where to drill.
Beautiful.
Of course, you have to spend
$10
$10 million to get this information on this well.
That's the thing about being out in the Permian and having this type of information. It's not a case of do we have oil? We have it in great abundance. It's just a case of getting it to the surface, which is where this information becomes vital.
And this is, of course, the well's being TD'd out right now. It's right at 17,000 feet. Look at the shells that look at the amount of shell we're in at this base. At 60, our total vertical depth being 64, 47, 6450, 6452. See, this is continuing. This is continuing all around these lower levels. We pop into it and out of it, but if we can come in lower and hang pat at these levels, match up our gammas on the two wells, then the old well and the new well, it's a roadmap. It tells us what we need to do. It speaks to us.
Which is why, and thank you, Jim, for the explanation, which is why we're supremely confident that this next well will be a 1,000 barrel of oil per day plus well, possibly as high as 1,300 plus, which is a monster well. Huge production if we have a little bit of luck as well, and oil prices break out of this bind that it's been in the mid to late 50s, which we still make a nice profit, by the way, but if it can get up to the 60s and who knows, maybe 70s and beyond, Jim,
that'd be nice.
Be very nice, wouldn't it?
It's exponentially. It costs normally about the same to operate these wells, whether it's $70, $80 oil or $50, $60 oil. It's the same to operate them. So any price increases we get off our baselines are profit for us.
Fantastic.
And we've got, another thing I just want to touch on real quick is producing the wells prudently, not opening them wide open, not pulling your sand out, holding them back a little bit at first so that you can get maximal production, you don't damage the formation. I've seen a lot of guys out here where they're looking to make the most production in the first few months so that they can look better. Normally lose a lot of their long-term production and their long-term numbers. And we used to do that 100 years ago back in this early days of producing oil and gas wells, where they would drill them in very, very close and they would produce them wide open, and you lost a lot of oil in place to that kind of operations. We intend and plan to be prudent operators, to get the optimum amount of not hold them back so much that we're not making good money, but holding them back enough that we're not going to leave oil in place. In other words, we're going to get every little bit of oil or gas out of that formation.
So just creates a more consistent flow, and not such a steep decline when you pull the wells back a little bit. We're very excited, and you would have spoken, by the time you've seen this video, prior to seeing this video, you would have either spoken to myself, Dylan Knight, Grant McLaughlin, one of the other ASE partners. He's based in Australia. Dion Elliott, you would have spoken to also. He's based here in Dallas. Or Christian Murillo, who perhaps may have spoken to you. So it's just good to, obviously let you meet Jim, who's part of ASE and helps take our business to the next level. There's opportunities for you guys to invest into this project, and then to start to build a portfolio of projects just like this, because this isn't the only well that we'll be drilling from now on in. We plan on building an empire over the next 5 years, and everyone has the opportunity to build their own mini empire within what we're doing and create residual income for many, many years to come for yourself and your family.
And another thing I wanted to mention is that as far as access is concerned, if there's more specific information you need, I'm sure any of the guys can get in contact, and if I can answer any question you might have, I'd be happy to. It's not like you don't have access to all the expertise that we have behind us.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that, mate.
You both.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.